Okay, and we are live.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to our February 10th, 2021 Somers Planning Board meeting. Would everyone please join me with the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. Surratt, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Chairman Curry,
Here.
Ms. Gannon,
Here.
Ms. Garbino. I don't know, she was on and now is off, but I'm sure she'll come back. Mr. McNamara,
Here.
Mr. Mattis,
Here.
Mr. Prince,
Here.
Mr. Zaberto.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. First on our agenda is Nancy.
Here. I'm
Okay,
here.
good.
She
Thank
just
you.
made it.
Twice is here.
Okay, twice as good. First are two sets of draft minutes for consideration. The first is from December 9th, 2020. Any comments, additions, corrections? I'll make a motion, then we accept the minutes as presented to us
second.
from December 9th, 2020. That was a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And the second is January 13th, 2021 minutes. I'll make a motion that we approve those.
I could second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the re-granting of the time extension for Granite Point. What actually happened was at the last meeting, it was written and was specified from October 27th, 2020 to April 26th, 2021. And it should have said from January 25th, 2021 to April 26th, 2021. So at the last meeting, we approved these. I'm just going to read it again for the record, and I think we'll get an unanimous approval for this with the correct dates. It's for the 14th 90-day time extension for the Granite Point subdivision re-grant, a final subdivision approval, wetland, steep slopes, tree preservation, and stormwater management and erosion and sediment control permits as per resolution 2017-10 from January 25th, 2021 up to and including April 26, 2021, as per town law section 276-7C and town code section 50-13M. And for the record, the property is located on the east side of Route 118-202, adjacent to the Amawalk Reservoir, and it's located in an R40 zoning district for the development of 23 lots in a cluster subdivision. Is there a second for that time extension, please?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Next is our project review for Somers Sanitation. It's an application for site plan approval and special exception use permit for improvements and additions to existing transfer and recycling facility for the property known as 241 Route 100. For the record, we're in a memo from Woodard and Curran and also from a memo from our town planner. So I thought what we do is get a brief presentation from whoever's representing them tonight, and then we'll listen to our town planner and our town consulting engineer. So whoever's here from Somers Sanitation, let them in, please.
Yeah, I think that will probably be Leslie and Rich.
No,
There's Leslie.
Bye-bye.
And I think
Hi,
Rich,
Leslie.
hi, how are you?
Leslie, who else is on your team? Rich and is that it for your team tonight?
Yes, Rich Calagero.
Okay.
So would you want to just give us a brief, bring us up to speed on where we're at? Please, and then I'll
Sure,
listen to our town planner and our town engineer, our consulting engineer.
sure. That would be terrific.
Thank you.
So good evening. Good evening, Honorable Chairman and members of the board. I'm here tonight on behalf of Somers Sanitation, who's requesting approvals to improve their existing recycling and solid waste transfer facility on Route 100. The property has direct access to Route 100 and is located in the office and light industry zoning district, where this facility is a permitted use. As you recall, the applicant is constructing these improvements, and these are upgrades, in order to comply with current DEC regulations. The improvements include a fully enclosed building so that all the material the applicant processes at the plant will be handled in a fully enclosed building prior to being transported to an appropriate off-site location for final disposal or reuse. In addition to the fully enclosed building, the applicant is proposing to replace its existing scale house with an updated scale house to weigh the material, install related scale, water tank, and a parking pavilion with a roof, but no walls for the applicant's trucks. We last appeared before you back in October of this year, of 2020, because we're now in 2021. And at that meeting, the board declared itself lead agency under SECRA and provided a positive recommendation to the zoning board. I'm pleased to report that the zoning board on November 17th, granted all the necessary area variances. On January 27th, we submitted the necessary site plan materials and other documents, including the stormwater pollution prevention plan and various other documents in connection with our site plan approval. We have received the memos from the planner and the engineer, and we will be submitting some additional documents for your next meeting so we can schedule a public hearing for our site plan approval. Rich Calagero of Cornerstone is here to answer any questions you may have at this time. But we understand from those memos, there's some additional materials that we need to submit to this board in order to schedule the public hearing.
Rich, do you want to say anything before I turn it over to Joe and Saret?
No, I just, we've gone through the comments from both Saret and Joe. And, the majority of them have stormwater, and we don't really have any problems, and we're going to make the necessary corrections and clarifications that were requested. But any questions or any particular things that that either one of them or anybody on the board would like addressed, that's what I'm here for. Talk to you about.
Okay. Joe or Saret, I don't care, whoever wants to go first.
Sarat, why don't you go first, Sarat?
I was planning to. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
See what happens when you turn into a grandma?
I don't know, but not at all. Anyway, basically, I think the big issue was outlined in my first memo, and then followed up by the cover memo that Leslie's office sent out yesterday. And that was on review of the submission. There had been, Joe and I had earlier discussions with the applicant, and they had actually, as you know, been preliminarily before the board. It had appeared that the application initially would have been only for the first two lots. On review of the site plan, it was very clear that there were modifications to the third lot, lot 11, that had not been earlier discussed. And we assume that that's the result of the engineering that was required to put the stormwater basins, which had not been initially anticipated, onto lot 11. And therefore, my initial memo indicated that the application needed modification, because we were now looking at 3 rather than 2 lots. So we had a discussion, Joe and I had a discussion with Leslie and Rich. They understood what they needed to do, and that is what they were going to now resubmit for, which would be a new EAF that takes into account the 3 lots, a site plan that now takes into account the 3 lots, and any of the other, some various paperwork, some of which they've already submitted, that is the modification for the site plan approval. So they're already on the road to that, and we will review now this new submission based on the 3 lots. However, there were one or two other points that I'd like to bring up. And I think.
Correct. Could I ask you a question before you move on? Because you just mentioned the EAF. So including all three lots now, again, on the EAF, will we do all the calculations based on the total acreage? And what about the setbacks and, those sort of things? I mean, we're gonna have a lot less lot coverage,
You know what, Rich, let's talk about that offline. Let me look about that and think about it. Obviously, we need 3 lots, but I know the coverage and setback issues relate to the first 2 lots.
Yep.
So figure out how.
It's a little tricky and
As you recall, and I think Surratt, we had discussed this and we'd also discussed it. I think Joe was part of it, is that the only thing, just so the board knows, the only thing on lot 11 is the stormwater improvements. There's no structures. They're just ground surface improvements. We're not building any structures on lot 11. Right now, the stormwater goes onto lot 11. We're actually just improving that. We're adding one little catch basin. So I'm envisioning, and we had originally discussed that there'd be a stormwater easement, which is our intention. That was Joe's suggestion, which is totally our suggestion. But when we include the 3rd lot, it's not for the purposes of, and I think we can talk about that offline, but I don't think we need to do all the calculations showing all 3 lots. I think we just need to include the activity that's going to be the new activity that's going to be on lot 11.
I think the main thing really is disturbance. That was what.
Correct. And that was always included in our calculation.
that was always the 2.6 acres included the disturbance involved with the stormwater improvements, because we always envisioned some sort of stormwater improvements to bring the stormwater from lot 9 across lot 11 to the existing infiltration basin. And we also knew we were going to have some disturbance on lot 11 up in the northeast corner of lot 11, where there's currently a discharge location that handles all of the upstream stormwater, plus a good portion, maybe a third, a little less than a third of the stormwater from the existing facility. And part of the issues that we have with the amount of stormwater going to the basin being increased is a result of, we're now going to have all of the stormwater from the Somer sanitation site go to the infiltration basin, and that way it will all be properly treated with the new basin, the new smaller basin that we've designed to help settle it out, as well as the grass swales to the south of that basin. That's why we have more stormwater heading towards the infiltration basin. We have a reduction in the stormwater going to the discharge point number 2, which is that other discharge point in the northeast corner of lot 11. And that will no longer receive any stormwater from the Somers facility. It'll only be from the upstream watershed.
Can we let Steve Robbins back in? He got kicked out for a second. He's in the lobby. If we can let him back in.
Sure.
But I think, Rich, as it relates to Surratt, I think one of the questions that Rich was asking, at least as it relates to coverage, right? You want disturbance, yes, that's whole disturbance. That's part of the EAF.
Yeah.
But remember, you're going to be modifying an existing site plan for lot 11, right? And then we have a new site plan that is the combination of the other 2 lots, right? So when you're looking at you have an existing site plan for lot 11 that is now going to be modified, and maybe some of those numbers might change, your coverage right? But that's going to be specific to that lot. As it relates to the EAF, we're looking at the entire project. So that's why we might look at disturbance, for example, that is across the entirety of of all the lots. But when you start thinking about coverage issues, those are site plan issues that should be compared to the respective site plans.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay.
And
all
since
right,
we're not, and just so I know, Joe, and since we're not creating any structures, we don't really need to do any of the side there's nothing to do setbacks from or anything like that.
Right,
So
I
it's
would
not
just
really
verify that
applicable
every-
for lot 11.
Right, I would just verify all that, but I would suspect you're correct on that.
Okay.
Okay, the one other item that I want to bring up was, and Leslie, I think you need to explain this as best you can, is that as the ZBA granted the variances, they made the point several times in their resolution that they wanted any of the additional impervious surfaces to be treated with pervious pavers. And in my memo, I indicated that in the site plan, at least as it was initially submitted, I did not see any area that included pervious pavers. There was just additional pavement areas and blacktop areas. There was some grass areas, etc. And Leslie seemed to have a more nuanced thought about what that was that the ZBA said, but that was one of their conditions. And I think that's something that we have to consider.
Right, actually, there are two things, just so the board's aware. So our original plan was all the access ways, the driveways, was going to be all changed to asphalt, which we told, when we discussed it with the zoning board, we said we wouldn't do that. They said if you can, use either millings or permeable pavers if possible, which is very difficult when you have heavy trucks like we're going to use here. So this is all dealing with like, so the access way points. So we've now designed it. Rich will be designing it with the millings because the trucks will just rip up the permeable pavers. So
The permeable pavers, they don't have the strength that normal pavement has. And, we have very heavy vehicles and we also have a lot of tight turning actions on this. So you're going to have a lot of heavy vehicles making turns at very low or no speed. And that will just rip those pavers to shreds or move them. If we use pavers, if we used permeable concrete or asphalt, that stuff is not, it doesn't have the strength, which is why it is permeable.
What I would just say is, I would concur that the pavers are going to be challenging. Pervious asphalt is what we have in Town Hall parking lot and at Reese Park parking lot. And, it is not as structurally sound, but I would want to look at that a little bit, Rich. But I also would want to make sure, will the DEC even accept pervious anything would be a question I would have right now.
Well, and that's another question. We've yet to go to them, and we're right in the process of setting up a pre-application meeting. And it'll be surprising if they would accept that.
Right. So I'm
not even sure they're going to accept the millings, to be perfectly honest with you.
Right. But let's just at least ask the question. I'd like to get a documented response on the pervious on a pervious asphalt. I would concur with the pavers. The pavers are going to be very difficult with the truck.
They'll be taken apart.
They will work. And we've been using this, if you recall, in a number of our subdivisions where, the private drives have that 2-foot strip in our code and we've been allowing developers to replace that with pervious asphalt because the permeable pavers are just too difficult to take care of. And so, we've been kind of replacing those in kind. So if we can move forward with the pervious asphalt, according with the DEC, and Rich and I can get together on the structural integrity of it to make sure it's acceptable, I think we could put in the bounds of the ZBA approval. Right. But obviously if the DEC is saying no, or, Rich and I can come to the same conclusion that it's not structurally sound enough, then we might have to have another revisit with the DEC.
Well, and I'd just like to say, one other thing that, first of all, when we did the stormwater, we designed this as if all of these traveled areas, whether they're millings, concrete, asphalt, they're all it's all, it was all done with the idea that it was either concrete or asphalt. We didn't take into any extra savings for any pervious materials. The other thing I'd like to say, I know there's, the concern is that the water is going to be diverted, it's going to be runoff, but all of this water is actually going to infiltrate into the groundwater. It's all of the water from the site is going to be diverted to the basin, and that basin is an infiltration basin. So there's never been an overflow, and there never will from it. So the water is all going to be directed, and it'll be cleaner if it would be cleaner if the whole site was paved with asphalt, because when you put millings down, you end up with fines, and the fines end up in the basins, and it's another maintenance issue. But either way, I mean, I'm more than happy to work with Joe on looking at other options than the permeable pavers.
I have a question. My
Sure.
question is, when you were at the ZBA, did you explain to them that permeable pavers were not a good option? Did you have this discussion with
Right,
them?
that's why they wrote wherever possible. If you look
Yeah.
at their resolution, it's very specific. It says wherever possible. Their
we-
point was really just to try our best, whatever kind of materials we can use, rather than just putting an asphalt pavement.
Yeah,
That
we
was just
said we
their
would, we
suggestion.
said we would look into it. And
That's
you know,
why it
if-
specifically says wherever possible.
And that's why we went back to the millings. If the board and the town considers millings to be permeable, then that would be really our only real option. That right now, I mean, again, like I said, I can work with Joe, and I've had some of our structural engineers looking into some things, but it all keeps coming back to it's a big maintenance issue, and a lot of the materials will be destroyed.
Joe and Steve, aren't millings going to move with the amount of traffic and the size of the traffic that's going in and out?
Yeah, but they'll move, but the millings get pretty, I mean, they get pretty stiff, frankly. They're not, I've seen some of the millings that we've used in some certain areas that, they set up pretty solidly. I mean, it's not.
A lot of the millings, when Mike and I walked around and we were trying to figure out where millings were and where asphalt was. And, he's more intimate with the site, and he knows what areas had been paved and what areas millings have been placed down. And there was a lot of areas where I would, if it was just me walking around, I would have called it asphalt.
Yeah, it gets pretty tight. And one of the things that I know I just made a note of that I want to look at also is, remember, this is an infiltration basin
Yes,
in the groundwater overlay protection district. I want to look at the leachability of the millings. I believe I haven't looked at this in a while, but my recollection was that there might be something that we might not want to use them for other reasons. The milling. So this would be something that Rich and I'll have to take off.
Yeah, we can definitely. And so one of the things about asphalt, and so the asphalt millings, is they have PAHs in them. But the one thing about PAHs is they're not very leachable. So the issue with the millings is the fines that end up in the runoff. So if you have a basin with a 4-bay or this new basin, they'll settle out there and they'll sit there, but you're not going to really get the PAHs to leach out of asphalt or the millings. They just don't. That's not how they function. But it is a maintenance issue. You gotta keep everything cleaned out.
And there's more surface area. We're going to have some oils. And
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we got to keep an eye on the fact that this is a solid waste site in
Yes.
the groundwater protection district that we're infiltrating groundwater on. And I understand some of the concerns around maybe trying to do our best with stormwater. I would concur with Rich that the analysis assumes it's all impervious. So I'm comfortable that once we come together on the calculations that we're going to be properly sized to handle the stormwater, then we have to turn our attention to making sure that we're not introducing a contamination pathway into the groundwater, whether it be from sediment, as Rich has mentioned, or whether it be from with the additional surface areas associated with the millings versus asphalt, you could have, other things attached to that sediment that could potentially leach, like oils, for example. We just have to take a look at that and look at this holistically, not just unidimensionally around storm water. But we'll work with Rich on that, and I'm confident we'll come to a conclusion.
That's fine.
All right. The
Um,
only- well,
Any
once
other, just listening to see if there's any other board member comments or questions.
And I think
now.
Saret had 2 other items, didn't you, Saret?
Well, only that, the variances granted, I don't think we have to go over each one, but they were granted by the ZBA. You want to touch on some of the issues that New York City DEP raised, Leslie?
Yeah.
Rich?
Yeah, all the DEP issues actually got resolved. There was a final letter where they said they were fine with everything that they had asked. They'd asked for some more details, and they obviously will be getting the stormwater, the SWEP, once we put in, satisfy obviously this board as well. They'll be reviewing the SWEP accordingly.
Okay, and the only other thing is that the board should simply vote to accept its role as lead agency since 30 days have passed since you issued your intent.
Before we do it, I just wanted to know if there's any other comments from the board or questions they have for the applicant.
Well, not necessarily of the applicant, but of Joe Papagallo. I noticed reference to a high amount of type D soils. And I was just curious, is there a high amount of type D soils because of how they sealed the original dump in the 1960s?
I'm going to ask Rich to.
Yeah, no, one of your
I
comments.
think it's just natural soils, but I want Rich to.
It is, and I believe there was a mistake in the NOI. That's you guys had a comment on that, and we are going to be correcting the NOI. They should be B and C soils only.
Oh, okay.
Because, Nancy, you're quite astute, right? Because in the groundwater protection overlay district, you wouldn't expect to see class D soils, right?
Right. I was just curious. You see, I moved here when the rats were running down Route 100 from losing their food source. I have a big memory.
Any other comments? Saret, do you have anything else to say?
No, just.
Then I guess I'll make a motion that we declare ourselves as lead agency since the 30 days has passed.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Anything else from Leslie or Rich? I guess you know what, work on the comments and get together with Saret and Joe.
Yes, we will do so. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I like the bridge scene behind Miss Schneider.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thinking about California.
And Saret, I'd like to say congratulations on becoming a grandmother. I became a grandfather last year, so it's a beautiful thing. Grandkids are better than regular kids. That's so true. Everybody always said it, and I truly believe it now.
Yeah, because they're
Everybody-
really not yours to deal with.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
They go home.
Amen to that.
Yep.
Should have had them first.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is TM Crowley and Associates, the application for a site plan approval for the construction of a CVS pharmacy with a drive-through for the property known as 77 and 81 US Route 6.
And I think for this one, we need to let in Pat O'Leary, right?
Yeah, and who's here from Cuddy and Fetter?
Here's Pat.
Let me see.
Pat, do you have somebody else with you on your team that was in the waiting room with you?
There should be, I believe Alex should be there as well. See,
Is
Alex,
Alec there?
yes.
Yep, we're letting him in now.
Yeah, let Alec in, please.
Good evening.
Evening.
So Alec Glad from Cuddy and Fader. We are the attorneys for TM Crowley and Associates, CVS Preferred Developers, and we also have Patrick O'Leary, who is from VHB and the applicant's engineer.
So why don't you give us a little brief presentation and then turn it over to our town planner and our town consulting engineer, and then the rest of maybe some questions from the board.
Yes, certainly, I would be happy to.
Thank you.
So, as this board may recall, we were last before you in September of 2020. In September, we introduced the project. We received some preliminary input from the board, the town staff and its consultants, which we incorporated into the plans, which I'll cover in a second. The board at that time also referred us to the ZBA because it was thought that there may be a need for a variance to permit the drive-through use, but the ZBA decided that it was a permitted component of the overall use, which the building inspector then agreed with. So since that time, we have been working to develop the plans further, which we submitted on January 27th with an updated EAF and on the advice of town staff to appear before the board tonight to reintroduce the project and hopefully commence the seeker process by circulating for lead agency. And as we mentioned in our correspondence, in the coming weeks, we will be submitting more materials in furtherance of the application, such as a SWIP, full traffic study, wetland report, tree removal plan, and so on. And just to provide a brief refresher on some of the project specifics, we are proposing a 14,000 square foot CVS pharmacy with single lane drive-through prescription window and 76 parking spaces. This project site is located across from Summer Commons Shopping Center off of Route 6. We are proposing to share the existing signalized intersection with Somers Commons and install an exit-only egress point on the western edge of the site for the drive-through traffic. The existing sidewalk along Route 6 will be extended the length of the site, and we will include street trees along the Route 6 frontage. There are also existing pedestrian signals at this location for safe pedestrian movements, and we are proposing to put in striping for a crosswalk, but that of course will require DOT approval. And then based on some of the feedback from last meeting, we did shift the loading zone farther west, and we did move the dumpster enclosure to the back of the site. So now there's over 34 feet of a drive aisle clearance between the loading zone and the cardboard compactor, which is adjacent to the building near the drive-through. So again, we think this is a really good project for the town. The drive-through presents an easily accessible option for those who may have a disability, who are mobility impaired, or for parents who don't want to unload a car full of children. Also, we think the location is ideal relative to the Muse Senior Development, the Avalon, and the new memory care facility, particularly with some of the amenities that are offered as part of the CVS, such as the Minute Clinic. And like I mentioned, on with me is Pat O'Leary. So if there's specific questions, we're happy to pull up the plans, show you what the site plan looks like, and answer any questions from the board or consultants.
One additional note for everybody. The site will require an individual permit through the Army Corps. We are culverting or proposing to culvert a drainage feature that is culverted under the roadway. We'd be proposing to extend that culvert. We've had a preliminary meeting now. It did take a while. Part of the reason it was so long getting back to you is we wanted to meet with Army Corps. One, to validate that it was feasible in their mind to actually culvert the stream, and two, to solicit any preliminary input on the plan such that we wouldn't be producing a plan in front of you and then commence the Army Corps and completely have to change the plan around. So we're trying to coordinate that effort. The meeting was a very good meeting. Fortunately or unfortunately, as the case may be, this site is in the New York City watershed. And to that end, must get an individual permit. It would have been wasn't in the watershed, it would have been satisfied as under the general permit, section 39. But due to the physical location, we do have to do an individual permit. Be a longer process for the individual permit. We have to do water quality certifications through DEC. So this will be a process, and we'll certainly keep the planning board up to speed with any comments immediately as they come through the Army Corps. But generally speaking, they were appreciative of our efforts in trying to take the storm drainage and actually improve the water quality before it was being discharged downstream into the wetlands. And we'll be continuing to work with them in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Hey, Pat, what are those treatment mechanisms that you're suggesting? I was looking on the plan for something. I didn't see anything there. Is it just an outlet?
Yeah, Joe, we didn't show them on the plan because we actually wanted to have the conversation with
Okay.
representatives. And so
I just wanted to make sure you weren't looking at the riprap at the end that's shown on the plan as the mitigation, because I had made a note about mitigation and then you mentioned it. So I'm glad that that'll be forthcoming.
No, we discussed two forms of mitigation with them. One of which, as you're looking at the plan and as the culvert comes out of the wall, we had suggested creating a wetland, what I'm going to say immediately to the left of where it comes out of the wall on the plan, and discharge the water into the wetland. So create a wetland there with wetland plantings, some shrubs, berries around the perimeter of it. Yeah, so right to the left, it would be to the left of that area right there where the riprap is.
Yeah, okay.
And they actually, I was surprised, but actually they didn't like that idea and they asked for an alternate, which we suggested what I'm going to call a stream restoration through there, in which we try to create a more suitable stream bed with, sets of varying check dams to create eddies and create a habitat that'd be more conducive to stream aquatic life than the wetland had been proposed to the side. That they thought that was a much better idea, much more appropriate there. And so we're taking a step back and I'm getting our stream restoration people involved to figure out exactly how to create that stream there that would be consistent with the expectations
All right.
of Army Corps. Unless
They're probably going to have you do a natural bottom on the pipe, right? You're going to do an open bottom, like an arch culvert or something like that, but a natural bottom?
Actually, because of the slopes down through there, if you look at the slopes, one of the things we'll probably avoid the natural bottom pipe because it's so steep going through there. And we'll culvert it and then try to use drop structures along the way to reduce the velocity so that we can outlet it into this new stream bed per se, and slow it down enough so that when we have the check dams and the eddy arrows and things of that nature, we can actually, the water's moving slow enough so that we can get some water quality benefits out of it, and get rid of sedimentation, things of that nature. So I was a little bit surprised by what they prefer to see as opposed to the wetland, but
Yeah, and now I can see what you're talking about with the slope. You got 30 feet of slope there, so.
yeah, that would be, going with
It wouldn't work
natural,
with it wouldn't work with a natural bottom, so.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Right, okay.
So, part of the issue there is, it's a bit of a limited area to do that stream restoration. So we're going to continue working with them because I'd still like to see something else happen in conjunction with that, if at all possible. But, I, as opposed to what DHB would like to do or our environmental scientists, I really do have to respect the Army Corps, as this will be an individual permit with a 401 water quality cert. And how intensive this is going to be. So, but I'm certainly going to keep the community and its consultants apprised every step along the way. And you're certainly more than welcome. It's hard to have in-person meetings with them, but I would expect there will be at least one in-person meeting this spring sometime out there on site. And if you would like to be invited, we'll certainly invite you, and we'll copy you on all communications.
Thank you.
Wow. That's really something. I don't think we've ever done anything like that or had anything like that done before. Have we, Joe?
Not at those kind of, at that steepness. We've done some restoration on the back end. I'm thinking of, I can't remember the name of the subdivision, where we had to do some mitigation at the end of a pipe adjacent to a wetland. We had a little more space. We didn't do it as a stream bed restoration. We did it more as a wetland. So yeah,
Wetland restoration.
yeah, this would probably be one of our first, since I've been in the town,
Yeah, but this
first stream bed restorations that we've done.
well, that's going to be whatever you end up doing. We'll really be interested in that one. That's one for the books.
Yeah.
Joe, I know I'm jumping way ahead, but is this going to be pretty much automatic for them to be able to hook into the sewer and water?
I believe so. Yeah, the sewer system should be right in front of the house. I believe that it is something that Alec, you should check on, but my recollection is that when we put the sewer in, I believe the last property that was included was PJ's. So this would be west of PJ's. So I believe that this is in the Westchester County Sewer District, but Alec, you should make a note to check on that.
And we have requested will serve letters for both sewer and water, which we expect to be forthcoming.
Okay.
Right, but this all goes to Peekskill, and the county has to have an action to allow properties into that sewer district. I believe when Carney did the Crossroads project, that the entirety of the north side of Route 6 was wrapped into that.
Yeah, that's my recollection.
So my recollection is that this site is part of the sewer district now, but Alec, you should confirm that.
Yes, I will. I believe when we were looking at this site, I did see that it was in the district, but I will certainly confirm, and I can circle back with you on that too.
Wow.
One of the things, as I'm looking at this on the screen, one of the things I was curious about, Pat, is, I see the 100 year. Oh, that's the 100-foot upland. I thought that was.
That's
I
not.
thought it was floodplain. All right, that's the 100-foot buffer. I got you.
Right. If it was the 100-foot floodplain, I'd probably really be scratching my head as to how we're going to make this whole site work.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was.
I think you'd be ending up with a 7,000 square foot building.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I don't even want to venture a guess if that was floodplain, how we'd make it work. particularly since we're filling that area. It'd be
Right, well,
quite-
that's where my head was going until I reread it for the second time, and so it said upland and not floodplain.
Yeah, and if the floodwaters get that high, then we all have some really, really big problems.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised, the Crosslands project, that's now down the street from this, I mean, I remember with one of the hurricanes, that place was underwater. So, that's not that far south, that's not that far lower than this in elevation. But anyway. So, our comments, John, I mean, we didn't get a lot of new information.
Right.
Our old memo is the one that provides the overall, some overall comments that's still applicable. We've added some some additional ones, but essentially, I think the bulk of our comments will be coming as we get the materials that were referenced by council as part of his presentation.
right.
One thing would like to check on, are we okay now to communicate with Mike relative to scoping for traffic here? I assume the escrow is in and we can,
Yes, yes, and his contract has been approved by the town board, so you can start working with Michael Monte.
is there anybody else that wants to be involved in those discussions with VHB and Mike, or just communicate directly
yeah,
with him? And keep him
Mike
apprised?
does that and then, gives me feedback. And if Joe's office has any issues, they can, communicate those with me and I will direct them to Mike.
Got it. Thank you.
Saret, do you have any more comments? And I'm also, any more board member comments or questions?
Yeah, no, we'll do a fuller review the next time around.
Should we declare ourselves lead agency this evening?
That is the main thing that you need to do tonight. Your intent to
Okay.
be leading.
Right. Board members, you okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, well, if there's nothing else from the applicant, then make a motion that we declare ourselves the lead agency. We intend to declare ourselves the lead agency on this project.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
I,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a nice presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, last on our agenda is a referral by the town board
Oh, yes.
of a zoning petition request by Londonderry Group to create a text amendment to the multifamily district to be known as MFR 100 and associated, and its required comprehensive plan amendments to be applied to the property known as 259 Route 100. What this is a referral of the petition request for the zoning board to create this text change to facilitate the Highview Court, which is a 24-unit multifamily housing development on 2.28 on a 2.28 parcel located at 259 Route 100. It's
John?
currently zoned R80.
John, Rick and Linda are in the waiting room. They had texted, and so I
Okay.
explained that they'd be in the waiting room until their application came up. So if whoever's managing that could let them in, please.
Okay, thank you.
Should be Rick DiNardo and Linda Whitehead, please let them
Oh,
in.
Linda Whitehead. We haven't seen her in a day.
Boy, that's a voice from the past.
Yay,
Old friend.
yes.
Are they there?
They should be in the waiting room. They texted me and I said that
And by 1 second,
they'd be
right now I only have Linda and Enrico.
That's it.
Okay,
correct. Yes, thank you.
I'll let them in right now.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's Linda.
Here I am. I was thinking
Hey,
maybe you
there's
didn't
Linda.
really want to see me.
Yes.
That's
voice from the past.
How is everyone? It's nice to see everyone again.
Yay.
Good to see you.
Been a while.
Someone else coming in too, I think.
Rick is on, I believe.
Just says Enrico's joining still. It seems like it's taking a minute. Sorry for the delay here.
I see him. Rick, are you there?
No.
Nothing I can do except I can't remove him and ask him to rejoin it. Just looks like he's frozen and joining.
I can text him and ask him.
Yeah, maybe you can text him, tell him to pop out, pop back in or something.
There he is.
There he is.
Yes.
There
Okay.
he is. Okay, I was just texting you to try again.
All right. Am I on?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
After.
So why don't you guys give us a little brief presentation and then we'll
Sure.
talk.
So as you indicated, this is before you on a referral from the town board. We've been working with them on the proposed plan and zoning amendment. Rick is the principal of Londonderry Group, Inc. The property is 2.28 acres at 259 Route 100, right by Highview Terrace. Its only frontage is on Route 100. It's currently in an R80 district, and there's an existing single-family home which has been in a state of disrepair. It's a unique property in the R80 zone in that it fronts only on Route 100 and is directly across from and north of the OBI and OLI districts to the east and to the south, with a number of pretty significant commercial and industrial uses, including one that you were reviewing earlier this evening. So those are pretty intense as you come to the site from the south, commercial and industrial uses, as well as the gas station in Delhi. So our client, in looking at the property, came up with the concept to try to use this property as a transition between those commercial and industrial uses and the R80 single family residences adjacent on the other side. And so the concept that has been proposed now, and our clients had a lot of conversation with Surratt, and we've been working with the town board, would be to create a new MFR 100 zoning district, which would allow for multifamily housing on a property with direct access to Route 100 and located between commercial and industrial zones and an existing single family zone. And what we're proposing on the site is 24 units in 2 buildings, 2.5 stories or a maximum of 30 feet. They're all 1 and 2 bedrooms. 15% of those units would be affordable. We proposed a large buffer to the rear of the site to buffer the adjacent houses in the R80, Rick has spent a lot of time talking with the neighbors. When he first approached the supervisor, he was told, talk to the neighbors. And he's spent a lot of time doing that. He's gotten them very comfortable with his plan for the site. I don't think they like having the abandoned, dilapidated house there. And they'd like to see something that's attractive. So as we've gone through with the town board, we've also done some other things. We've increased the front yard setback, agreed to provide a stone wall, an attractive stone wall with fence along the Route 100 frontage. The idea is to really improve the look of the site and the Route 100 frontage, so that as you're coming from the south, from the industrial and commercial areas, it really creates an inviting gateway as you start to enter into the hamlet. So it's sort of a gateway into the hamlet, even though it's a little bit south of there. We've discussed with the board providing some passive recreation space. And we've also worked with Surratt on proposed modifications to the comprehensive plan to incorporate this concept. At this time, the town board has indicated its intent to be lead agency under SECRA. We've worked with Surratt on some additional information to be provided as an addendum to our EAF, some additional studies. And the town board has scheduled their public hearing, which will be open tomorrow night, but will be continued because they obviously won't have likely a recommendation from you yet. And they also need to work on the SECRA issues. So they will open the public hearing tomorrow night, but it will be continued. Rick brought us in to help him with this. We really think it makes sense for this site and this property. We're glad that the neighbors are on board with the concept. We think that helps everybody. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Surratt, the town board has to automatically become lead agency because of the zoning change. Is that correct?
That's correct. The site plan will eventually come to the planning board. It's similar to many of these other items that you've done, Somers Crossing, etc., where there's needed to be a zone change. Where the town board acts as lead agency. I'm sorry. And the planning board will start to review the site plan. At this point, there hasn't been the simultaneous submittal of a site plan application, but that is up to the applicant as to how that timing will work. They may want to see, where they're going further with the town board on this.
And I think as we start to do some of the engineering for SECRA purposes, we probably can get a site plan put together and start that process with you as well. But obviously you can't approve the site plan until the town board approves the zoning.
Right. Yeah.
I
The board has been there several times before, and this is a similar process.
I assume we are discussing our opinion of this new amendment to the zoning code. Is that correct?
Yeah, to the zoning code, and then,
Right.
Along with that, the modifications that are required to the comp plan.
All right.
And so basically, there's some general ideas. I put some bullet points in the memorandum that I gave you to think about. And, what we're looking to do, like on many of these other things that are referred from the town board, is provide the feelings of the planning board related to this proposal as guidance to the town board in its own deliberations. So some of the things you might want to consider, obviously, there's a change in density going from the R80 to the multifamily. Although Linda has discussed, the adjacent residential, what your feeling is about that, the impacts on the Route 100 corridor, lighting impacts, traffic impacts. There will be a traffic study as a result of this, and there will be any mitigation that is required. Potential for similar uses along Route 100. And you may have seen the letter from Westchester County. They talked about the need or their desire to see a sidewalk from the frontage of this use up to the Froggies to give people the opportunity to have access to some kind of, local use. And also they were making the distinction for affordable units. I'll just repeat this again. The two distinctions with affordable units is that in the town code, the town's affordable regulations relate to 80% of median income, and the county, what is called AFFH housing, affirmatively furthering fair housing, actually permits people with incomes that are less than 80%, somewhere between 50 and 80%, to reside in those units. And the county was suggesting that some of those units at least be subject to that AFFH regulation. So those are types of things, or anything else you want to comment on to the town board?
Is 15% of these 24 units mean 4 units will be affordable?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And will they all be rental?
Yes.
So it's an apartment building?
That was one of my questions.
Yes, the plan is for this to be rental.
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned that
That was
the
one of
property,
my questions.
go ahead, Dennis, you go ahead.
Okay, my second question is, can you outline in the utility infrastructure water and sewer that is going to support this, not only, no?
Yeah, it will be well and septic. There is no public sewer or water in this area.
Oh, boy.
Can I want to ask a question? You mentioned
Well,
that.
housing unit's going to be serviced by septic.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in a tank with fields, right?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
You have the room for that, Linda? Is somebody taking a look at that?
Yeah, Rick, your engineers have looked at, it's over 2 acres. And it's a relatively flat, the property is flat, so you don't have any issues with sloped areas or anything like that.
24 units.
24.
Yes.
Rick, who are you working with on this? Which engineer? Who's your engineer?
Ralph Alfonsetti.
24 units, 30 bedrooms.
I just wanted to clarify. So it's two structures. Is it each structure has 24 or each has 12 to total 24?
Each has 12, a total of 24.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question. You said this property only access to Route 100. So how far is the perimeter of this on the south side, this perimeter on the south side to that roadway between the property and Froggies?
The Highview Terrace, there's a strip there.
How big is that?
Rick, what is it about?
I believe it's from including the setback to the pavement, it's a little over 100 feet.
Oh,
To the pavement, not to the Highview Terrace right of way.
Right.
All right, so you got, okay, so you're farther up than I thought. Okay,
Yeah, it's a strip.
and that strip is still going to stay R80?
Yes, our
Yes.
we're focused just on our parcel of property, our parcel.
Well, Linda, that was one of my questions is, does this zoning text amendment allow other parcels to now fall under this designation of multifamily?
So we are asking for only our parcel to be rezoned. And in discussion with Roland and Surratt, the floating zone language has been removed
Aha.
from the text. Therefore, someone can't automatically just apply for it as a floating zone. They would have to actually ask for their property to be rezoned. And I don't know that you're gonna, and we've put in the language about frontage on Route 100 and a certain amount of frontage. I think it's 300, minimum of 300 feet of frontage, and between commercial or industrial zones and a single family zone. So Surratt has asked that we take a look and see if there's any other properties along Route 100 that would fit that description. So we will be doing that. I don't think there's many, if any.
Ooh. Well, you want to have more than one, or you're spot zoning?
It's not spot zoning. I thought I've taught you guys about spot zoning. If there's a planning purpose behind it, it is not spot zoning.
Oh, okay.
Linda,
I
I've tried to tell people spot zoning is not what they think it is.
I know.
So Linda, one of the things that I want to make sure you're aware of, I heard that Ian about the town board is asking you to put a stone wall up, I assume similar to the Somers Crossing job.
Yeah, and we are going to make sure that it's not within the right of way, that it is on our property.
Well, that was on their property too. They have an extended right away from the center line. I want to say it's 75 feet from the center line. Just make sure that because of the turnpike designation, they have an increased requirement from the center line of their road. My recollection is that 75 feet. So it could be on your property and they could still have jurisdiction over it. So I would just be very conscious of that as you're laying out your site plan.
Okay. I think we have the room because we've pushed the buildings back a little at the town board's request. We would have the room to push that back a little if we had to. I don't know that anybody wants to. I think we like having it along the road, but
I mean, otherwise you got to pay use and occupancy cost to the DOT, which I suspect you don't want to pay for that.
No,
so if you can avoid it.
we would not want to have to pay that.
Right.
Going back to my question, if you're going to have that 100-foot strip is going to be R80. No, nothing's going to get built there.
I think that strip actually technically belongs to, well, portion of it is part of the road right of way. I think the rest of it belongs to the lot in the rear.
Yes.
So it belongs to the R80 lot to the rear of our property, which is improved with a single family home.
Would it be a terrible suggestion to try to purchase that area so your access would be on High View instead of directly onto Route 100?
Well, the elevation there's a big difference in the elevation, so it'll be difficult to really access High View.
Okay.
High View is that's that roadway that it's very steep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be the genesis for its name. But it's definitely, I think for safety, I think 100 might be an easier access, but when we get into the actual site plans, we could probably debate that more.
A quick question. I just want to circle back to the floating zone in the proposed amendment to the comp plan. It says the proposed new MFR 100 district is not proposed as a floating zone, and as part of this amendment, all multifamily districts will be amended such that all mapping of any future multifamily district will not be as a floating zone.
Wow.
Will
That was
that
not our suggestion. That was Roland's request.
Okay, because I just jumped out a little bit and I wanted to discuss the implications of such a change. I don't know I just don't know enough about it. It would be good to have like a framework for a discussion of that particular point, Surratt.
Yeah, let me just give a little background on that. When we were doing this, I think people were not aware, particularly Roland was not aware, that all of the MFR zones right up front, the first paragraph, designates them as floating zones. And when we were discussing this particular parcel, he said, wow, I'm not sure that that's a good thing. And therefore, we decided as part of this to eliminate that for all the zones. And really what that means is that each application or consideration by the town board is one that the town board is not obligated to take through the entire review process. It can say up front, if somebody comes in with an application that it does not feel is appropriate, right up front, it can say that they do not feel it's an appropriate use for that particular parcel and not consider it. If it's a floating zone, they are obligated to consider it through the entire process. And Roland felt that that was not a good idea. So far, the town has not been in a position where it's had a problem doing that, but who's to say it would not be in a position or that it would not be in a position in the future where it might be problematic. So that's why it was Roland's suggestion to eliminate that.
Okay.
Roland's
that helps.
comment was he doesn't like floating zones in general.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's because he got in trouble over allowing a zone that didn't float where he put it. Hidden Meadows. They allowed Hidden Meadows and said it was a floating zone, but the floating zone didn't float that far.
For them to finish.
I have another question, if that's okay. And this is for the applicant. I don't know, Linda and Rick, if you received it. We have a memo from the Affordable Housing Board. It's actually got tomorrow's date on it. It's dated February 11th. And in it, they're suggesting that a 15% set aside for affordable units is not sufficient, and they're arguing for a higher set aside. The county does not sort of push back on 15% at all. They would like to see us adopt the model code. But if you could just, if you've had a chance to read this, and if you haven't, I can wait till I hear what you say.
No, we did get it.
Yeah.
We went back and or in forward in time the same way you did. And received it, and we actually spoke about it a little. And it's an interesting concept because in the memo, they talk about workforce housing. And workforce is generally considered to be between 80% and 120% AMI.
Mhm.
And Rick's going to look at what his rents are going to be to help address this comment. But I think that with this type of unit and this type of development, the rents are likely to fall into that 80 to 120. So it really is going to provide workforce housing. It's going to be, a type that you don't really have a lot of in this part of the town. You've got townhouses and sort of higher end multifamily. You don't have this type of multifamily so much in this part of the town.
Mhm.
So we actually think that it provides a more affordable product that in many ways will be workforce housing in this part of the town, to address their comment. I think the county is happy to see 15% because they look for a minimum of 10%. So they like that there's 15%. They just would prefer to have them at 60% AMI than 80% AMI.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for the record, townwide, according to the Affordable Housing Board, we only have 16 such units within Somers that fall into that 80% category, if I'm reading this right. And most of them are up in the northwest section of town. We don't really have a whole lot that's falling into the east section of town.
You have more than 16
more.
at 80%.
Yeah.
You have far more. Yeah.
Far more, yeah.
Chris, excuse me, I'm not sure where you're getting that number from, but I keep a record of affordable units in the town. And the town, I don't recall the exact number, but in terms of the 750 units that all of Westchester was required to provide for the, the
Angle fly.
HUD, no, for HUD. for
The settlement.
settlement. 22% of those units were actually provided by the town.
I
Okay.
think that
I
maybe,
happen to have personal knowledge of
We
a
should,
large number
well,
of
we may want to update the housing board because I got that off their memo
yeah,
in line 3, unless I read it wrong, but it's the town's
Yep.
inventory of workforce housing at 80% AMI is 16 units. And so that's where
Yeah,
I got that
They,
statistic.
they may have misinterpreted some of those numbers and I'll have to get back to them.
Okay.
well, I think, is that workforce housing for people who, as opposed to the fair and affordable marketed through Housing Action Council? Is that the differentiation?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is the town board looking for us tonight to make some comments?
Yes, I mean, what I'm looking to do as usual is look for all of you to provide, your comments that I can create a memorandum out of to forward to the town board. If you feel that you're prepared to do that, tonight, fine, I'll put it together tomorrow and bring it over to them. If not, if you feel you need to discuss this further, we can do it, and have it available for the next meeting, because as Linda said, they're just going to open the public hearing tomorrow night. However, the board feels they want to do it, but so far I have not heard, I've heard a lot of questions, but I haven't heard anything that I could create a memorandum to the town board saying that these are your things that you either feel positive about or that you have issues with, this proposal. So I think we need to make that, to clarify all of those.
Saret, would it be correct to say that you mentioned that Roland wants to remove the floating zone? Is that part of the amendment? Is that part of this zoning that we're considering?
Yes, it is.
Okay, lost sight of that. I don't have a problem with that since it wasn't adhered to all that closely anyway. And we just about filled up all of Route 6 with it anyway. I don't think there's anything left up there. Well, maybe there is a few parcels.
Oh, we could find something.
Yeah, I guess you could. All in the watershed.
I think it's a reasonable use of a transition zone. So I have no problem with the apartment, multifamily housing. So
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. I concur with council's point that being that we already have an OLI district in the area, we've got some commercial use there. I think that, and if the Affordable Housing Board is accurate, that we don't have a whole lot of this type of housing on the east side of town, I concur with Bruce that that this is a good site for a project like this.
It's certainly a much more attractive approach to the town coming up Route 100 than what exists now.
you don't like that house?
The dilapidated house needs to come down one way or another.
It's the color that's a little off.
Construction.
I think it looks like a Halloween house.
Well, the thing is, nobody was going to build a single family house on this lot.
No.
It's
We
just not
understand that.
an
Oh, I have a-
ideal location
I have
for
a
it.
question.
That's true.
You're servicing these 24 units with wells. Do you have a concept? Does your builder have a concept of the well situation?
So far, our engineering, the initial plan provided for
Not on Route 1.
identical. And the engineering was done and calculated to support the 3 buildings. So then we reduced it by a third. So with that in mind, we know we have more than sufficient coverage for septic and distancing on the wells. And, again, assuming that the wells are dug and produce enough water, which will be determined at a later time.
Obviously, if we can't, provide enough water or enough area for septic, the project can't happen.
Obviously, yes.
Well, I mean,
At
there
least
are,
not at this size.
well,
But we anticipate it being sufficient.
okay. I was gonna say, I mean, there is, I think a lot of that might be tied ultimately to where you land on the sidewalk. Where this all lands on the sidewalk, because if you didn't have room on site, I mean, and you were gonna wind up putting a sidewalk to make it connected, there is a sewer up by the, Somers Crossing site.
Well, but the sidewalk wasn't, even the sidewalk that they asked for went south to Froggy's, not north.
Oh, see, I was thinking that north would be a better way to go, because
It's too far before you actually get to anything that you would build a sidewalk to.
And then you have a narrowing of the roadway because there's a guardrail there.
Yep, and then
Yeah.
there's a lot of water bodies on that left
There
side
are.
too.
I'm not saying
There's
it
a
would
ton
be-
of them.
I'm not saying it would be easy, but I'll bet a dime to a dollar that you're gonna see plenty of people walking up to the DeChicos from this site.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had the conversation with the town board too, that the sidewalk going north just doesn't make a lot of sense for this project.
Well, I'm asking the planning board twofold. What is your feeling about a sidewalk? And in terms of a sidewalk, are you in favor first of the one that the county was suggesting, which is from the entrance to the Froggies, and then the one that Joe is talking about going further north, towards the hamlet? What is the feeling of the board on both of those?
I'm not for a northern sidewalk.
I'm not either.
Yeah, I think, I've always been a sidewalk advocate, but I think in this instance, I think north, there's already a lot of foot traffic for the businesses that are up there. And I don't know how feasible it is to, just the scope of that project may distract from the scope of the actual 2.5 acres that we're working on. And I think that the businesses that are south of Highview, who, I live on that side of town, and I know that they've been struggling through COVID. And obviously, when this project's finished, hopefully we're done with COVID. But I think the increase in foot traffic going south is probably not such a bad idea. If I had to pick two, listen, if I could get it going both ways, I would say let's do that. But I think I think south is definitely, for the purposes of this project, I think that's a start.
Is that the feeling of the board?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Practical purposes, Froggies is the place.
And I think from what I got from the board, I think the only the one theme that came out was, I guess, a little bit of concern about the septics, but I think it was pretty much unanimous that even a teepee would be better than what's there now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would ever build a residential house there.
No.
It's a really hard location.
Well, not a single family anyway.
Correct.
I think it's a very, because multifamily is residential, and I think it's a
perfect answer.
it's a very good creative use for that spot. I agree. I think going south with the sidewalk in this instance is better, because I think it's just too much territory to cover. And I'm not convinced that this, if you ask me at this moment, that we'd get the foot traffic on it to justify the effort and expense involved to the applicant. And I appreciate the explanation and insights into more context with the Affordable Housing Board's memo regarding the workforce housing. I think that's informative, but I feel very positive about this project. I think it creates a type of housing that is lacking, and that would be, I think, a great utility to people. So well done.
So, Rhett, from a planning standpoint, would this lead to a crosswalk situation so that people can cross the Route 100 over to Mexican Shack and the hairdresser that's there? And I think there's a Mexican restaurant.
Well, again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I would highly doubt it.
And that's up to the state. 'cause
Yeah, it's
state's
definitely up to the state, and I do not think that this is a location where that would happen.
Okay.
But there is a traffic engineer who will be looking at this. So, you know, we can certainly ask him to look at that.
Yeah, without a signalized intersection, I
Yeah.
would not.
There's no way that's
It's
gonna
not
happen.
safe.
Okay, I mean, I unless there's any other board member comments, I think you want to summarize this then, Saret, and send it to the town board?
Yep, I can do that tomorrow morning, send it around, and as long as I get everybody's, you know, relatively quick response, I will submit it for tomorrow night's meeting.
I
Okay,
will check my email numerous times and respond, promise.
I have you as a priority sender, so I actually get notified, Saret, when you send stuff out. 'Cause
Wow.
Okay.
I'm a little brown nose like
Me.
that.
you got an apple for it too?
If,
Well,
well, we have to get out of this virtual thing and then we'll
Yeah.
see.
Joe still
We,
owes us a
we
box of candy,
appreciate
Joe.
your time. We appreciate your time and
Okay.
your thoughts tonight. We do think it's a good project, and it's nice to see you all again.
See you all
Those of you
again.
who I've seen for many years.
Well, we see you,
And we'll be back.
when we see you, it means we have housing.
You'll see me. You might see my associate a little and sometimes me, but you'll see one of us.
Good to see you too, Rick.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Hey, good luck. It was a nice project.
Yes, very nice.
Good.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank
If-
you, Linda.
If there's no other members, any more comments from the planning board, our next meeting is March 10th, 21. And I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
So
Second.
be it.
Thank you. Good night. All in
Good
favor? Aye.
Aye,
Good night, everybody.
aye. Good night, Joe. Thank you.
Hey.